Good morning, guys. Today we're going to start working on some simple landscapes. And the way these landscapes are going to work is we're going to start with the simplest concept of landscape and gradually add more and more complex ideas as we practice until we have like all the components of landscape painting. And we'll have practice for like a whole week on making landscapes. So you can see I have my paints and stuff set up. I have my paints. I have a paper towel. We'll need a paper towel today to make some clouds. So I have that ready to go. I have my water and I have my sketchbook papers here. My ones from before with my nebula on, and I'm just gonna go ahead and work on the other half of the nebula sheet. Now, I can decide if I want my landscapes to be vertical or if I want them to be horizontal. It's 100% up to me, but we're gonna fit two landscapes on this piece of paper. Like I said before, if you happen to have some tape, tape can be handy because you can use the tape to separate your two landscapes. If you do not have tape, do not worry. You can just make a line, remember, with the gap so that they don't paint into each other while we're going. So I'm going to paint one, actually I might paint both of them vertical today. So what I'm going to do now is just take my paint, my paintbrush, and just like when we worked last week, I'm going to put a little drip of fresh, clean water into the colors that I feel like I'm going to need today, so that they can start to kind of wake up. Remember, watercolor paint has to be used with water. And I am going to start, though, if we think back to aerial perspective, we need a blue sky that gradually gets lighter as it moves towards the horizon line. I also am going to kind of think ahead to where I kind of want my horizon line to be. It's not particularly pleasing if it's just half and half. So I'm going to either paint the sky a little lower or a little higher, right? We don't have a lot of elements that we're going to add today. We're going to just be practicing with ground and sky. One thing I do want to make sure is that you get enough water in your blue for the sky. So I have a pretty watery puddle here. We do not want, so if I take some straight blue and just make a line over here, that is never the color of the sky during the day, right? That's too dark. And so you want to make sure that your sky isn't like dark royal blue. That's a nighttime painting, and it's a whole different painting problem that we're not going to talk about today. I am going to do what's called a graded wash. So if you remember from the techniques video, I'm going to put some stripes down and I'm going to just gradually pick up some water so that my sky just gradually gets lighter as I move down my sheet. I can go back over it. And I am actually going to just let that dry a little bit now. It's too wet for me to start adding ground. So I need to move on to the next landscape. The great thing about making landscapes is that we're not drawing anything ever on the paper. We're just straight painting. So I'm going to show you now how to make a cloudy sky. So I put just a little tiny bit of whatever this was on my palette into my blue. So you can see it's just a little darker blue. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to gradually add a little bit of clean water as I pull my way down my paper. And then what I'm going to do is grab my paper towel. And remember when we did the watercolor techniques, we learned to lift off with paper towels. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that here, making sure that, thinking about aerial perspective, that my clouds will get closer together as they come down here to the horizon line, so it just sort of blurs together. And now I'm going to, just to give these guys some definition, I'm going to come back with a little bit more of my like sky color. If you pop outside and think about the way the clouds look, they definitely have some physical structure. They're made of vapor, and I'm just kind of coming back here now and filling in some of that structure so that they feel a little bit more physically present in my sky. I can go back over the top of this in just a second now with some more paper towel, but you'll see that I'm pushing those clouds closer and closer together as we come down here to the horizon line, because that is, using aerial perspective, that is how that works. I don't want this stripy effect. Obviously, my sky looks a little too forced, a little too stripy, and so I'm just going to come back and use my paper towel again and lift or soften just a little bit some of this striped effect that I got here but didn't want, so that I just have the effect of a cloudy sky. After doing the two skies, my first sky should be dry enough to add some ground. So remember, thinking about aerial perspective tells us that the front, which is the bottom of our painting, is the brightest. So I don't want to use this color, bright green, way up here at the top. That will not feel far away. It will feel very close. So this is the front color for the grass. So what I have to do is take my green and put it out here on my palette. And I'm going to mix it with some of the blue that's here from my sky, actually, so that it gets a little duller. And I'm also going to put a little bit of water in it. So there's a duller version of green that I can move back. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of red into my grass so that I really have a grayish color for the very, very back. And that's the color I'm going to start with, is back here, just a very kind of grayish green that I have added a lot of water in, and a little bit of red. And that color will feel far away. I've given it a little bit of a curve. You don't want to give it like super hard curves. I'm now gonna just take a little bit more of that next color green. So this one, where I mixed it with the blue. So it's gradually getting more green as I move forward. We want to have the sensation of depth, and I can have some variation in the hilliness too. So you can see I'm gonna not maybe go straight across before just adding a little bit more green. A little bit more green, and then I could grab a little bit of yellow if I want to really brighten it up to the front. So this very front layer will be the most brilliant of the greens. I can even just add some actual like yellow way here at the front. So you can see that this starts to feel like the very most front section. Right here, if I want, I can take the handle of my paintbrush and turn it over and like just sort of draw some grass in the end. So I'm pushing firmly but gently, not going overboard. But what this does is indent or emboss the sheet of paper, and the paint will pool in there when it's dry. So it's hard to see the effect right now. So this is landscape at its most simple, right? I have a sky that fades to the ground. I have a dull green, and my green gradually gets brighter to the front. And that gives us the illusion of space. I'm going to go ahead and do that again on this other one, just sort of changing up, I think, the colors some. So I'm going to take some sort of a little bit of brown and mix it with some blue. And make this a little flatter. So you can see I've mixed brown with blue, mixed in a little more green. And I can mix in a little more green, or I could mix in, you know, yellow and make it look like fall, or mix in more brown. The color doesn't really matter. Like I could make a landscape in all purple as long as like the sky controls the light. And so if I have a purple sky, that means my grass and other elements will probably also be fairly purple. So you do want to just be careful if you are changing up the color of things, that you change up the color of everything. And there we go. Landscape at its most simple. Ground and sky. Have fun. Give 2 a try.